gentlemen. Welcome back to the Fandom Zone podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the Fandom Zone, ready to talk more WandaVision with my wonderful co-hosts and fellow WandaVisionaries, DJ Nick and Jesse Jackson. How you doing, guys?
We are good.
Doing wonderful, yes, and I love that. I love WandaVisionaries. That could actually, I think that name could actually stick, Charles. You'd probably do a hashtag WandaVisionaries.
If anybody uses that now, I get credit for it, because I'm on record, right?
You heard it here first.
I came up with that. Wandavisionaries. That's the official fan name for this, like Trekkies or Whovians or what have you. So there you go. I'm putting that out there. Hopefully everybody likes it. All right. So yes,
definitely better than Potheads for Potter fans.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. So it kind of makes them sound like stoners, but
Yep, exactly.
Which I'm sure is the point. But yeah. So here at episode 202, we're going to be talking Now in Color, which is actually an episode title, a proper episode title, because since we recorded our episode 201, they released the titles for episodes 1 and 2, which turned out to be something like filmed before a live studio audience and Don't Touch That Dial. Yeah.
Yes.
But see, Charles, it was like magic, It's all about magic. So boom, like magic, we get the titles.
Exactly. So boom, I had to go back on, our service provider and change all our descriptions and whatnot from episode 1 and 2 to film before a live studio audience because some intern couldn't get his act together right on the website.
We applaud your meticulousness, sir.
Well, I kind of viewed this as they were holding the titles because they were trying to, even though they had shown us a little clips, kind of holding the mystery. And so that's why I think they specifically did not release them, because it may have given a little bit too much. Like, we did not know before we watched the first two that they were doing 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yes, we did.
And I assume 80s and 90s.
It was in the trailers.
Well, no, we didn't know each episode would be a different decade.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
And so I'm saying maybe that's why they were keeping it holding.
Okay.
Just in case.
All
just
right.
a different, another alternate thought, maybe.
Jesse playing devil's advocate once again. That's all right. Nothing wrong with that.
Being positive, defending the poor intern. That
Shakes fist at intern. Intern. What? All right. So you can see how we're going to be today. A little controversial, I guess. All right. So this third episode, Now in Color, aired back on just a couple of days ago, January 22nd, 2021. Written by Megan McDonnell, who's going to be writing or is probably in the process of writing, the screenplay for Captain Marvel 2, The Return of Captain Marvel, which makes perfect sense because, well, hey, one of the characters, especially as we find out at the very end of this episode, is related to that movie. So, makes sense to me, right? And directed once again by Matt Shakman. So I'm guessing if he directed episodes 1 through 3, he's going to be directing 6 through 9, presumably. So we'll see. Unless he's doing blocks. They're doing directing blocks, like on Doctor Who or something. So before we get into cast, I want to get everybody's thoughts because this was the third episode, and I think this was an episode that a lot of people wanted to see because it really started peeling back the mystery more. And it seems like the mystery revealing is getting accelerated a little bit. So I want to get everybody's take. So Jesse, just in general, what was your reaction to this one?
So I did not put a stopwatch to this, but my feeling, and I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts, is it appears episode 1 is 99% straight sitcom parody. Episode 2 may have been like 95 or 90%.
Okay.
And this one, it felt not quite 80%. But in other words, there was a little more, like in the very first episode, the only time we kind of broke this mode was when she, the wife yelled, stop it, right?
Yes.
This one we had a little bit where we had the radio and the other one, the second one. And this one, there were multiple scenes where, the Vision goes and mentions something and Wanda winks and resets the clock again.
Reverses the VCR.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice. And the neighbors almost wanting to break character.
Yeah.
And Geraldine. So, like I said, in the terms of like if we were doing a circle,
a chart,
a chart. This would be much more opening to little less parody. I like this a lot. I think it was right. I loved the Partridge Family, especially growing up in my in the Brady Bunch. Yes, but not as much as the Partridge Family. And I feel this was a very much homage to both sitcoms. And so this was a really great episode. And, I'm going to double down. I think the idea of doing these in 24, 25-minute increments is really genius because it really sets it, even though you only get, a short amount of time and you're like, damn it, I want more.
Right.
But I love that it fits perfectly, at least to me, with the storytelling they're trying to take.
With a half-hour sitcom format.
Yes.
Okay. And Nick, how about you? Any thoughts on this before we get into our deep dive?
Yeah, so as not to dive too deeply, I was mentioning to both you guys off air, I felt, Charles, I was part of a show that I esteem greatly, which is Ghostwood.
Right.
And,
well, thank you.
And
you mean Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast, found right here on the Southgate Media Group Network.
Yes, indeed. I mean that. Guys, check that out. It's a great podcast. But what?
It's like Ghostwood here.
It's like Ghostwood here.
Because here's the thing. It really felt super. This is really a Lynchian experience because I actually went back and watched the first two episodes along with this because you catch so much because the pieces slowly but surely start to fit together, and there are a lot of things going on that actually allude to what happens in this third episode, in episodes 1 and 2, which we didn't discuss, and I will get into those a little bit because I was watching. I was like, wait a minute, there's that, and there's that, and there's that, and there's that. And so I will throw those off later as we get into it, but I really, really loved it. I'm a little bit irked at folks who say this was a boring episode, because I actually read people saying that, and I actually read somebody saying, another boring episode like this and I'm done. And I'm like, seriously, dude, do you want the Avengers? Go and watch Endgame. I mean, don't waste your time with this. Go watch Endgame if you want people punching each other's lights out. It seems like
that's exactly what they want, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it was just like, that's why it made me also think of Twin Peaks, which maybe at the time was maybe ahead of its time, as in it was too clever for the audience it was catering to. And that's why maybe it didn't catch on as much. And I think this is kind of suffering from what Twin Peaks suffered at the time. Twin Peaks, granted, blazed that trail, but I think this is suffering from the same pains that Twin Peaks suffered from.
Yeah, I mean, I have noticed I was watching noting the IMDb ratings, and it looks like the ratings for the third episode are the highest so far. So maybe people are, at least, the ones that have stuck around, have come to really appreciate it for what it is. So maybe the word of mouth, especially as the series progresses and things are revealed, and we kind of talked about this last episode, that maybe more people will gravitate back to it if they initially skipped it, thinking it was just like, oh, this is weird, I don't get it, and then checked out, and then they'll find out from their friends, oh, it was something else completely different. And their friends are telling them, you should watch all of this. Not just like the first episode or two. But yeah, I agree with you, Jesse. I agree, there's some definite homages here, obviously, to the Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, one of the things I noticed was Vision, there's that shot of him in the opening credit sequence, the show's opening credit sequence, where the show within a show, I should say, that, he's there with the swing set, and it looks almost pretty much exactly like the swing set in the Brady Bunch backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like the same kind of fake yard.
Yeah.
The stairwell, which I do not believe was in the first two episodes, their living room.
Yeah.
Very clearly like a Brady Bunch stairwell. though it's going the wrong way. Which is, I'm a little embarrassed that I know which way the stairwell goes on the Brady Bunch, right? I think, but maybe it goes the same way now that I think about it. But anyway, I love this, and it is very, very cool. I love the credits this time. I wanted to do a deep dive. Who are the people writing and singing the theme songs, because they're amazing.
Yeah.
Also, there is another interesting parallel to the Brady Bunch story compared to what Wanda and Vision are going through in this. Because for folks who might not know, the backstory of the Brady Bunch is you have a man and a woman who each have 3 kids of their own who get together. Wanda and Vision, don't have kids till the end of the episode, and Vision is supposed to be dead, which is kind of a curious parallel to Mike Brady, who's a single parent due to the death of his wife. But in that show, we never found out how she died. So there is that. And also, there is, when the whole thing of the whole thing of Pietro, Quicksilver's brought up.
Right.
Vision looks a little bit like him with the hair, and it could almost be a homage to the sexual tension, uncomfortable sexual tension between the 2 Brady step siblings, Marcia and Greg.
Interesting. So you weren't kidding when we were talking before we started recording about having, like your conspiracy board, your murder board with all the yarn and, like connecting all the dots and everything.
I went to town on this one, Charles. I really did.
All right. So, and we'll talk more why does Vision have super speed all of a sudden?
Mm-hmm.
Because that wasn't one of his powers. And,
that's right.
Just something I think we should all pay attention to.
We'll definitely have to talk about that.
Yeah, we definitely do. But before we get sidetracked, Jesse, so in addition, I think, to the Partridge Family and the Brady Bunch, I think there was also, especially with Geraldine, there also seemed to be this Good Times reference with her, because she kind of played a little bit like Thelma on Good Times, if you ever watched that show, which I did. And just her mannerisms and the way she's, behaving, I thought that was very reminiscent. And, some people have said, well, this is kind of like Marvel meets Twin Peaks, and I would kind of disagree, because I don't think it's so much David Lynch. I think this is more Marvel meeting the Twilight Zone.
That's probably a better reference.
Yes,
yeah,
I absolutely agree. We've already, a couple of people have talked about in a almost in a critical way that, well, this is just Pleasantville.
Yeah.
I think just because there's black and white and then getting color, I think.
I mean, I think that's a fair comparison. At least, that's one of the inspirations.
I absolutely do. And so I agree with you. This is more, I do think it is kind of a Twilight Zone, trapped in a sitcom.
Yeah, exactly. Trapped in a sitcom reality. There's this idyllic world, and we find out that, hey, it's not that. That's not the case. There's a twist in that apparently they're in some other world trapped. So, it does seem very much like a Twilight Zone premise to me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Supernatural was really good at is doing these kind of episodes every year or so, where Sam and Dean get stuck into a different universe. They were on a show that was actually, in a world where Supernatural was a TV show. They did have the episode where the boys ended up going to different TV shows. So, I think they're doing this really well across the board, from theme songs to costuming to hair to makeup. The credit sequence alone on these 3 shows is amazing. Like, this one is really elaborate, because you think about how much they had to film and change, them walking around the streets and doing anything. Just really a labor that's for just a credit sequence. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, it does. I think they're definitely putting all the stops, personally.
Oh, yes.
So, cast this time, we kind of ran down the main cast last time, but obviously we definitely want to mention, Elizabeth Olsen, brilliant once again as Wanda Maximoff. Paul Bettany as the Vision. Catherine Hahn just gets a little bit in this episode as Agnes, but Teyonah Parris really steps up in this episode.
Yeah.
Particularly that very uncomfortable, ominous final scenes with Wanda in this story. Emma Caulfield just makes a quick cameo as Dottie Jones. We had David Payton being a bit ominous himself as Herb, the neighbor to Vision and the Scarlet Witch, WandaVision, and, doing some interesting things that we'll talk about. Randy Oglesby plays Dr. Stan Nielsen, which I have to guess is probably named for the Nielsen ratings.
Probably,
right?
Yeah.
Probably a little nod there.
Think so, yeah.
But he's notable because he's been on a lot of Star Trek shows. He's been on Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Enterprise. He's also been on episodes of The X-Files and was in the movie Independence Day. But,
yeah, he's one of those character actors that you go, oh, yeah, that guy. He's played a lot of government officials on different political shows. He had a very familiar face and was perfectly cast as the Doctor,
Yeah.
It was really cool to see him.
We also had Rose Bianco as Mrs. Nielsen, the rather frustrated wife who just wants to get the heck out of Dodge on vacation, or at least out of there somehow. And we had David Lingle as Phil Jones, who was rescued by a power outage before he had to talk about how his wife's earrings made her look fat.
Yes.
And I'm sure a lot of husbands can definitely relate to escaping that particular no-win scenario.
Absolutely.
That particular Kobayashi Maru. All right, trivia. So the commercial break this time. We should talk a little bit about this. This was for Hydra Soak. So we got another Hydra reference, second one, which was, I think, intended to be a parody of the old Calgon commercials. Like the Calgon, take me away.
Take me away.
Yes.
Yeah, when apparently it's just, it was just like water softener that you put into your bathtub water. But that was very popular during the 70s, so it fit perfectly with this period. And then, we got some interesting taglines with it, I thought, where we had a voice, a narrator or whatever saying, do you need a break? And talks about, like, escape to a world all your own, where your problems float away. So maybe hinting at Wanda, perhaps, escaping from her problems. When you want to get away, but you don't want to go anywhere, Hydra Soak. Find the goddess within.
One of the things that I was thinking, and it probably would have been too self-indulgent, but I was thinking, are they going to talk about Tahiti? Right? Because they were talking about getting away. No,
I forget where they talked about. Where were they going on vacation in this? Do you remember?
They weren't going to Tahiti. I was hoping they would.
Yeah,
but
they were going to go to
place.
Yeah, they were going to go to Jamaica.
That's what it was.
I think
that.
Yeah, I know a lot of people I think would have preferred Tahiti, but no
It
such
would have been
luck.
too easy.
Yeah, that's kind of like
Too on the nose.
Too on the
possibly.
nose. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
I agree. I totally agree with you guys. Yeah. All right. We already talked about the homages to the sitcoms. I want to give a little background on Billy and Tommy.
Okay.
Maybe Nick can help me out with this because I'm guessing he's already got some stuff on this as well.
Yeah, I've got some stuff.
All right. What do you want to talk about it so I don't have to?
Well,
or-
no. You go ahead and
All right.
start,
Tell you
John.
what. I'll go through mine, and then if there's anything I missed, why don't you chime in?
Sure.
All right. That
Chime
sounds good. So Billy and Tommy, if you're wondering about the names that they chose for their kids in this, the characters were first appeared in 1986's The Vision and the Scarlet Witch, Volume 2, Number 12, as twins supposedly born to the Scarlet Witch and Vision. Helped delivered by none other than Doctor Strange, right? But in reality, they turned out to be magical constructs created by Wanda's hex powers. It was revealed that she used slivers of Mephisto's life essence, and Mephisto is essentially the Marvel Comics version of Satan in this
Yeah.
in the Marvel universe. So that she used those slivers to give her children souls. And Tommy and Billy, though, were eventually reabsorbed by Mephisto and ceased to exist after it was revealed to Wanda that they weren't really real. And needless to say, she didn't take that very well. And one of the reasons that she had her little breakdown. And however, but because of the power that Wanda put into the soul fragments, they destroyed Mephisto, and the souls were reincarnated as Billy Kaplan and Tommy Shepard, who became the Young Avengers known as Wiccan and Speed. So essentially one child had Scarlet Witch's powers, and another child had Quicksilver's powers. And they debuted in 2005's Young Avengers Volume 1, Number 1. And if you notice, Marvel seems to be setting up the Young Avengers for possibly a Phase 4, late Phase 4 or Phase 5 project, because we have Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, being introduced on the Hawkeye TV series.
Yeah.
And we've had Cassie Lang, the daughter of Scott Lang, who becomes Stature, already introduced in the Ant-Man movies. And apparently she's being recast by an older actress. So I think they're setting up the Young Avengers, guys. What do you think, Nick?
I think so too. I mean, it's. I think it's going to be probably very different to the comics, because these twins might actually turn out to be real. It's hard to say. But what I was actually noticing, and going back and doing my rewatch of all 3 episodes, is how heavy the reference to twins is throughout these 3 episodes. Because in the first 2 episodes, we got tons of allusions to twins. We had matching sets of jewelry, matching sets of furniture. We got the 2 lobsters that Wanda sends flying out the window.
Good catch.
We had the twin beds, if you think about it.
Right.
Even the matching pieces of toast in the Toastmate 2000. Also, the lyrics to this episode in the intro is 1 + 1 is more than 2. Which is a curious one.
Right.
Also, before the end of the opening credits, you have Vision walking down the street with a book about pregnancy, which has identical front and back covers.
Interesting. So twin covers, essentially.
That's right.
Right.
And then you mentioned the earrings. Dottie asks Phil about these, and earrings, of course, come in pairs once again. And finally, Phil is reading the paper, and on the front page, I actually froze this, it announces 2 fire hydrants being added to Westview's main street.
Nicely done,
Very
sir.
Nicely done, yes.
Yeah, way to go, Nick. That was
Very
good.
impressive.
I just went mad on this.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, so that's why I wonder whether they're either just messing with us, and it's like, so evidently it was peppered throughout these 3 episodes. But
and obviously the main reference obviously is that Pietro and Wanda were twins.
That's right.
And if what appears to be Wanda still not having come to terms with Pietro's death, that could be, it's obviously something that's very important to what's really going on here.
And also, you mentioned the fact of it all being kind of a false thing. We have that moment where this Braxton Hicks is mentioned, who apparently, when she feels like she's having, that she might be ready to go into labor, but she isn't. It's kind of false labor. It's interesting to see, because we'd seen Wanda manipulate Vision before, kind of doing the no more thing. And here she almost seems to voluntarily want to stop him on reading more about false labor. So it's almost like she wants to almost like keep him in not knowing. And it's the whole thing of her construct of Vision has to be completely oblivious to this might all be a fantasy. And so she almost seems to want to constantly stop him when it comes to that kind of thing. So I thought it was interesting.
It is interesting. All right. So was there anything that I missed, Nick, about talking about the twins? Because I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this, but I did kind of want to address it for anybody wondering about the names.
I just wanted to say that as someone who has not, I am more of a DC guy, and so I had not read a lot of this. I did go down the rabbit hole of going to Wikipedia and looking up Wanda and, saw that her, she had sons named William and Thomas, right?
Right.
And so I went, okay, that's a nice little for those who do read the comics or go, oh, good, yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get Billy and Tommy, and we're going to get both, right?
Yeah.
Because I did love the line, well, the way to fix this, have a girl, and it's so I like that a lot. So I thought that was a really nice little added detail for comic fans that played perfectly well for us who haven't read the comics. It was like, okay, those are both two normal names. That made sense. It wasn't until afterwards I went, hey, let me check this. And, of course, they dot the I's and cross the T's, right?
Yeah, they looked up the importance of those names. Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Is that okay. All right, so 3 topics today. Topic number 1, since we're already kind of talking about it anyway, let's talk about Wanda and Vision once again. Because obviously, as what's being revealed, it seems more than apparent that everything that's going on here, and we kind of hinted about that last time, is centering around Wanda. It's all Wanda, and it seems pretty apparent that Wanda has constructed her own reality, and everybody else is trapped in this. So Jesse, I'll start with you first, since you're kind of ready to chime in. What are your thoughts about Wanda and Vision in this episode?
So I want to, before I get to Pacific, I want to talk about that sometimes as a showrunner, you can't frickin' win. Because there will be fans that now go, well, we knew by the second episode that it was on Wanda's mind. Was this supposed to be a big reveal? And no, they want you to see this, right? There is no shame in this. Not every TV show has to have this massive twist that you oh my God, I never saw that coming, right?
Right.
I'm not saying that, because we talked about this last week, oh, we're geniuses, we figured it out. I think they wanted us to figure this out. They gave enough clues.
Right.
And I think once you have that theory, as you rewatch both episodes and you watch this one, you go, okay, that proves that point again. That is other things. And I will not be disappointed if we end up being wrong, that they're going to go some other way. I don't think they're going to, and I think that you see that she is, and my theory, similar to, I think this is how she's coping with the loss of the love of her life, right? That everything had happened, yes. And which goes to when they bring up that Geraldine's like, oh yeah, your brother was killed by Ultron, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about
and we'll
this.
talk. Yeah, we'll talk. And we will talk more in our third topic. Just saying.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. Yes, we will.
So let's talk. This is a typical, she's pregnant. All the excitement of that, except this is, your 9 months, or it happens in, a 22-minute episode, which was very funny to see. I thought the fruit analogies with the doctor, we make it simple so the little lady can understand.
Yeah, that's
right?
Yeah,
very sitting with the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Wanda looking like, what? Who the F are you saying that, right?
Yeah.
And, him at the end, you could be a nurse, little lady. You were really good. Was so of the time.
Misogynistic, yeah.
Yes. Once again, I love the costuming. Now
we're in the 70s, yeah.
Yeah, his hair is longer. Right, it is, and so he, the whole, and I love the soundtrack. I know I have seen people online saying they hate the soundtrack, but I love it because that's exactly what a sitcom does. And the jokes about, well, what what
The
would
laugh
be the
track.
the laugh track. Yeah, the little. Well, what would be 2 hours? And her trying to cover all this. He is thrilled that he's worried about her. He doesn't know what's going on, and I specifically thought one of the sweetest moments was when the doctor and the friend go into the kitchen, and when Wanda says, "Don't you want to meet your son with your true self?"
Right.
And he changes, and I think that's a very sweet moment. So a lot of fun emotion. A lot of good comedy, the madcap of all the stork coming alive, and they even played with the cliche of when in real life an actress is pregnant, and they don't want the character to be pregnant, right? They have her holding laundry baskets, or they have her sitting down.
Yeah.
They do all this different things. They've done that in dramas and sitcoms, and her in a coat or holding a big fruit basket was hilarious.
To conceal her pregnancy, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, those little sitcom tropes, almost, a little bit. So, I don't know about you, Jesse, because you're old enough to probably remember this. I was getting a serious, Samantha from Bewitched vibe in this, because, the episodes where she's pregnant and, and her Wanda's powers malfunctioning.
Yes.
Kind of like Samantha's powers malfunctioned during her pregnancy, and they had to bring in Dr. Bombay to help treat her. I loved Dr. Bombay back then.
I love Dr. Bombay too. I also remember, I Dream of Jeannie, when she would get a cold or something, and this would go, she would have a craziness.
Haywire, yeah.
Yes, it would be very much Dr. Bombay, Dr. Bombay. Yes, that makes me smile. And the idea of, and the practicality of, right, the literacy of, I think my water broke. It's just water is flowing everywhere.
It's raining inside the house.
Yes, it was just awesome.
All right, well, before we take everything and don't leave Nick anything to talk about, Nick, what are your thoughts on our two lead characters in this one?
Well, see, this is why I love podcasting with you two, because you set me up so wonderfully here. Because first off, no, it's true. It's like, that's why it's a great hockey trio, kind of like the assist going boom, 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 net, and everybody's happy. Yay, goal. Okay. But,
Jesse to Nick, back to Jesse, going down the rink. And,
it would not be a podcast without Jesse doing a Springsteen reference and Nick doing a hockey reference.
Exactly.
So, yes.
This is us, folks. But yeah, to talk about the great setups, because Jesse, you mentioned you didn't see that coming, and I think that plays very well into the illusions that we constantly get about Vision and Quicksilver. Because, of course, that was the famous phrase that Quicksilver utters in Age of Ultron, the whole, you didn't see that coming.
Right.
But, and I think it's curious because, of course, Charles, you were mentioning this earlier, Vision shows super speed in this episode, which we know he'd never shown before.
Right.
And he talks a lot about everything being so fast. From the pregnancy, there's a lot of, it's very much focused on speed. Which, I think once again reinforces the fact that this is a fantasy and Wanda is kind of bringing Quicksilver into her fantasy, if you will. Because Jesse mentioned the hair. Vision's hair is uncannily similar to Pietro's in this one.
Right.
Also, and so I thought to myself, maybe she's kind of fusing the two together, the two men that meant so much to her in her life.
I think so.
And the fact, and you also mentioned Bewitched, having rewatched these three episodes once again, it constantly reminds you about Wanda having witchy powers, because you have Bewitched, you have the hex-shaped things when Wanda and Vision close inside the hex, and we know she has the hex powers.
Right.
Here, it's done again. And also, what I thought was interesting was, once again, we also get the whole thing of the water. I think was important because you have so many references, especially with Wanda, to water and to animals. Because here you have, the giraffe statues, and giraffes, there's a saying about giraffes that their head and heart are far apart. So it could also refer to Wanda as well. Also, Geraldine calls Wanda Foxy. And foxes are known as being sly or tricksters. So the fact that this could all be a trick.
Interesting.
And also we have a lion statue, which could symbolize Wanda when she gets very protective of her children and very aggressive towards Geraldine at the end. So I think those animal references are not there by chance.
Not to mention the stork, where because obviously that represents the babies.
And also I think water is also associated. Here's where I went did my crazy theories. Water is associated with the chaos of creation.
Yeah.
And aside from the pun of Wanda's waters breaking, Vision actually mentions water births, and there are fish on Geraldine's pants. Her boss is called Mr. Haddocks, which is named after a fish.
Right.
And I think the stork is both a symbol of nativity, but it's also a water bird. And
I think that's why the stork went after Geraldine's pants, because they had that fish design on them.
And I think it's also a play on Stork and Stark.
Oh,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
Tony Stork.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think also because we'd seen that helicopter in the I think it was the second episode, which had Iron Man's colors, the red and gold.
Right.
And here we have another reference to Iron Man, I think, with Stork, because I think you change it, it could be Stark, and so I think that could be the fact that Iron Man is kind of, because we know how the Maximoff twins were tied into the whole Stark Industries and stuff. So I wonder where that's whole Wanda's mind going a little bit nuts there and generating a Stork and not Stark. And as I said, the whole thing of chaos, because Wanda's magic is also known as chaos magic. Right. And that's why I think it's the whole thing of water, referring to the chaos magic. And so that was really what I got. Also, I had a question for you, Charles, and for you both, actually.
All right. To
go back to the Hydra Soap commercial, the product says made in the USA, but Hydra was not formed in the USA, and Wanda was not in the US when she was given her powers, which makes me think and makes me wonder.
Yes, this is true. And also, she does sing a Sokovian lullaby to her babies, the babies, yeah. So at the end of the episode.
That was a really beautiful scene.
It makes me wonder, yeah.
Yep, it makes me wonder. Yeah.
When I saw the fish on the dress, I had wondered if there was, was that just because they wanted something, a wild 70s look, or was there a deeper meaning to it? On this show, you almost want to always think there's something else going on in almost anything that you see.
Yep.
And there's also a continuation to the House of M thing as well, Charles. I think you caught it.
Which was the
the butterflies.
The butterflies. Yes, thank you. God. Yes. Because we have Wanda. That's actually a scene I think that plays out in the comics, if I'm not mistaken. That
and Wanda, it's also the name of a character.
Yeah, exactly. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Because Butterfly is actually Lila from House of M, who's the one who has the powers to bring people back and knowing that House of M is an illusion.
Yeah, Layla Miller.
Yep. Yeah. So I wonder
from X Factor. Peter David's X Factor.
I wonder where that was another call back to House of M, because she's a character plays a big part in House of M.
I haven't considered about that, but that would be interesting. I mean, we did talk about the possibility that this might be a reverse House of M, where the events of this might help bring back mutants to the Marvel Cinematic Universe instead of taking them away.
Yeah, because we'd also seen in the first episode when Wanda pours the wine, the wine is called Maison du Mépris, which means obviously, which could be translated as House of M.
Right. Yes, that's true.
And the M is very, very big.
Now we don't know that could be a deliberate misdirection, but
sure.
we'll have to keep an eye on it though. I think it's something to keep in the back of the mind a little bit as we watch these. I'm just hoping that we'll get the reveal that, oh hey, Magneto's actually their natural father of Wanda and Pietro. So fingers crossed.
I really do hope so.
I think a lot of us would really, really like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I like, Wanda in this one, obviously she's going through the whole, like I said, bewitched thing where her powers are malfunctioning, fritzing out because of the pregnancy. And it's, it creates a little, wacky sitcom chaos. And the Vision, meanwhile, he's struggling because, Wanda is having this pregnancy, but it's being accelerated. So again, we have something here with speed because the pregnancy itself is a rapid one. It's like when we first start the episode, she's like 4 months pregnant. And then, later she expands to like being 6 months pregnant. And then, by the end, 2/3 of the way through, she delivers. So it's something happening at a very rapid pace.
Mm.
So again, this has something I think to tie in with your, connections here, Nick, about speed.
Yeah.
And, Vision is struggling because, he's never been a dad before. He's, thinking, oh, well, I got to learn how to do this. And he has this moment where he has Wanda clock him, changing a diaper on a doll for practice. And he does it really quick at super speed. So this is another moment where he shows off super speed, which was, again, not a power he had in the Avengers. Now, one of the things that I really liked was when after she gives birth to Tommy, and the Vision suggests that she name him Tommy, which was the name that Wanda wanted. And I thought that was a really nice moment that, Vision is giving her the name that she wanted, not the name that he wanted. And so, if you notice, and I think it was after that moment where Wanda realizes, oh, there's a second baby coming. So it's almost like, well, she was very touched by Vision's gesture and decided, well, okay, I guess I'll make a baby for him too, that he can name William or Billy. Yeah. So I think that was, I think Wanda just, because of she's essentially creating everything at this point, she created a second pregnancy for herself.
That's an interesting thought. I had not gone that way, and I can't disagree with you because it is
because she thought it was all over, and she
Yeah.
seemed fine and everything, and then all of a sudden, Vision makes that comment, and then all of a sudden, there's the second baby coming.
Now, I took it more as a typical sitcom trope that you didn't know it was twins. Like, oh my gosh, wait, you're not over yet. Because that has happened a lot in TV shows. So that's what I took it as. It is probably more than that. That's a very good thought, Charles.
It's just something I was kind of paying attention to. It's something that stuck out as I was watching this. But, we talked about a little bit that Vision is trying to piece this together. And we'll talk a little bit about him talking to Agnes and Herb later. But, it seems like he starts to grasp something. And then Wanda, for whatever reason, like I said, rewinds the VHS tape and resets it. Or something happens to distract him conveniently. Yeah. So it's essentially Wanda, I think, just asserting control over this entire reality. That's and trying, and not, anytime anybody's coming close to the truth, she essentially changes the rules or, affects something because she's so desperate to keep this reality the way she wants it. Mm-hmm. So it's something to bear, as we start peeling more layers back. But that's something that I noticed anyway. All right. Anything else about our two lead characters?
No. Well, the only thing I did want to point out also, Charles, is you mentioned Vision, changing that baby at super speed and being timed. Mm-hmm. I think that might once again also be a reference to Lila or Layla Miller, a.k.a. Butterfly, because she's blonde and that's a baby girl that he's changing.
Boy, you're really good. You're definitely making those connections here. Interesting.
Well, as I said, I have put I just sat down there and I said, okay, let's put on the big, thick professor glasses and sit down and tear this thing to pieces and literally. So, that was the only other thing I wanted to point out. But yeah, that's loving it so far. I love that.
So welcome to Theory Time with Professor Nick.
I wish, but I'm just so grateful that I get to push my note-taking even more so to the point of madness.
And I kind of I'm hoping that, just listening to Ghostwood is what helped you start paying attention to little things like that. The symbolism.
That's why I said I want to definitely tribute the fine folks at Ghostwood for making me open my eyes.
Again, that's Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast, right here on Southgate Media. All right. Topic number 2. Let's move on. Let's talk about Dr. Nielsen a little bit. Agnes and Herb. Now, we talked a little bit about Dr. Nielsen, and Jesse rightly pointed out his misogynism with Wanda, being very 70s period, we don't expect women to be smart enough, so we try to keep it simple for them. That kind of sexism that was in play back then. But I want to talk about these characters in a group because they're all kind of characters that we get the impression that they're aware that they're trapped in this situation, in this Wanda reality, and the Wanda years, essentially. So I want to get your thoughts, and Nick, we'll start with you. What did you make of these characters? Especially Agnes trying to keep Herb from telling Vision what's really going on here.
It really does make you wonder whether, then where I guess one could do the play on words, Wanda, and then kind of you get tongue-tied over that.
Right.
Wanda wonders. But
Wonder Woman. Oh, sorry.
Yes, that too. And but yeah, it makes you think either it's almost like I don't know whether it's almost like a tyrannical world that Wanda kind of presides over, because we find she gets very aggressive when people seem to get too close to the truth. And so you wonder when
dystopic a little bit.
Yeah, so almost like kind of a man in a high castle thing going on where, but yeah, because she's almost like, you do get that whole thing of we don't want to make the mistress angry, and letting people know that there's more to it.
Right.
So it's either there's that, or there's kind of that they might end up like what we see happen to Geraldine later on in the episode. So it could be, don't do that or you'll be thrown out or something terrible will happen to you.
And that kind of reminds me of, I'm sorry to interrupt, the Twilight Zone, because there was this great classic episode with Bill Mumy, where he's essentially this omnipotent kid who's in charge of this entire town. And, and they all have to kind of behave, because if they upset him, he'll just either, do something horrible to them or just wipe them out of existence.
The Simpsons did a great spoof of that episode.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. In one of their Halloween episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
but that's what it reminds me of.
I think you're right on the mark with that one, because I think that's the impression I got. It's almost like the people in this town have to think happy thoughts, or they might turn into monsters. Right. So that was my impression. Is that it's just like, we're terrified because there could be consequences. And as I said, even Wanda herself seems rather hostile towards Vision when he comes back and she's sent Geraldine packing, literally. So it's almost like, we're trying to conserve this, because if not, the consequences will be incredibly dire. And I love the tension these characters provide, because the beauty of this show is how well it goes from incredibly upbeat and very sugary, to incredibly dark and incredibly suspenseful. The change in rhythm and in mood is so well done. And that is what I love so much about these characters, is just how you kind of transcend from happy, merry-go-lucky to it's all terrible. It's kind of like reminded me a little bit of What Lies Beneath, which is a movie that I absolutely loved, where you have this kind of happy-go-lucky town. It's Harrison Ford actually does a great job in that film. And it's a whole thing of happy, merry town with a dark, dark secret kind of thing. And that's what I really loved about this. And I really feel bad for
Was that the one with Michelle Pfeiffer as well?
Yep, What Lies Beneath, that's the one.
That's the one I was thinking of. All right, cool. All right,
so
Jesse,
I really loved it.
All right, Jesse, how about you? What are your thoughts on our Dr. Nielsen, Agnes, and Herb in this?
So I got a little bit of feeling of The Truman Show.
Right.
when things were right, like Laura Linney is like still trying to do the commercial, even though Truman, Jim Carrey's character is like starting to become aware, and she's trying to stay on, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" Right? So I got a little bit of vibe of that, in addition to the, It's a Good Day, that famous short story in Twilight Zone episode, which, by the way, they did a sequel in one of the later versions of the Twilight Zone where Bill Mumy played the adult. Yeah, and his son played his son. I love the pacing of this, that, Vision is coming back and his neighbor is no longer, using the hedge clipper, but trying to cut the wall because he's not paying attention. He's like, what's going on there? And then
even after Vision points it out, he still keeps cutting.
Yes. And then the whole...
So is he trying to cut himself away out of that prison, perhaps?
Yeah. And the idea of, is she in there alone? What's going on? So, they're aware of something about this character that has no family, right? And we're like, oh, that's no big deal. Why should that matter? And, the way they're talking about that is very, very...
So you mean talking about Geraldine not having a family Geraldine, or a home or anything?
And he's like there, and they stop, right? They want to say something, but then they go back in character. Well, but this macrame won't finish itself,
right?
And you do think I think it's very, very interesting that the doctor is very much just a typical sitcom doctor till the very last scene when Vision says, well, we hope you get to go on vacation. He's like, well, sometimes it's hard to get out of town.
Yeah.
To escape out of town, right?
Town. It's sometimes hard to escape a small town or something to that effect. Yeah.
And
so obviously that has a very big double meaning here, probably.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And so I think you're right.
So he's trying to escape, essentially.
Yes. But the other way you play it is maybe, and the well done on this actor is he plays it with just enough double meaning that you could, well, maybe he's just talking about getting on vacation, or maybe he's not, right?
Yeah.
And I really love that about them.
Yeah, I do too. And that scene with Dr. Nielsen is one of the things that stuck out with me, because it, like I said, it does sound like he knows he's in a prison. He wants to escape, and he's desperate to get out. But just the whole, like, for lack of just for a point of reference, the whole matrix of it all, is altering. So he keeps getting trapped back in. Like, even when he thinks he's going to get out, the whole reality shifts, and therefore, it adjusts that he's able to, or it keeps him in that place.
Yeah.
And why do you think he changes? Like, before, he wasn't acting that way. Before, he was fully in the character,
right,
and acting like, what changed to make him kind of want to admit to Vision what's happening?
Well, I think you're.
Why?
Well, I mean, and he's not the only character that tries to communicate to Vision about what's, because Herb does too. Herb makes this comment. When Vision's asking about Geraldine not having a home, Herb starts to say, well, Geraldine came, to this place, to Westview, because they're all, and then he trails off and doesn't finish his sentence. And Agnes tells him, no, stop. Yeah. So it's like he wanted to tell him. And I think Dr. Nielsen wanted to tell him, but they're afraid of what might happen, what Wanda might do. Now the question is, why are they feel like they're forced to play this part?
Yeah.
These parts. Why, if they do have free will, and we get the indication here that they do, and this is one of the first time that we find that they do have free will here, but they seem to be like going along with this. The question is why? Why are they going along with this?
Yeah, and that's where it comes through even more like the Truman Show, right? That they are playing that part.
Right. Now my question is, are they doing it intentionally, or is it a case where there are times when they lose themselves and become the character in the show, and then there are times where they remember who they are?
And is Wanda, and I'll jump in a minute, right? I didn't mean to cut you off, Nick, but is Wanda losing concentration? And that's when they have the ability to kind of slip out of character, and then
I think that's more on the money, because she's juggling a lot, presumably. She's got all these people she's trying to keep in line, this whole reality, and not to mention Vision, this construct of the Vision that presumably she's created from nothing, and now these babies. So consequently, it's probably putting a strain. And I think you're right, Jesse. I think that there are times where her control slips.
Yeah.
And maybe people they quote unquote break character.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, all right. Anything else about these characters?
I wanted just to add
or the real people behind the characters.
I just wanted to add to Jesse's point there, which that's what I was kind of thinking of, is it could just be Wanda losing her, should we say, a handle on the reality, because obviously to create a whole reality must be rather taxing for one person to do. Not to mention, you have all these moving parts.
I do it all the time. No big deal.
I know you can do it standing on your head, Charles, right?
Yeah. I've got multiple realities going. Let's just put it that way.
There you go. But also what I thought was curious is at the same time, they also seem to be elements in this, shall we say, constructed reality, because for lack of a better term, we don't know what the bigger picture is, that Wanda can't control. Like, for example, the helicopter coming in, like I said, with the red and gold Iron Man thing.
Right.
And also, we noticed also this with the stalk. She tries, she can't make it vanish, which makes you wonder.
Yeah, what was it? You notice they did.
Where there's more to it.
You notice that she did these puffs of red smoke we saw.
To try and make it disappear.
So was it Scarlet Witch red, or was it Mephisto red?
That's exactly where I was going to, because I thought to myself, is there more to this?
I have to think that color was intentional, right?
Yes,
oh,
in fact, it was more blood red, if you will, compared to Scarlet, and almost a hellish red, if you will, to add to what you were saying there, Charles. And I think it's quite significant that she keeps trying to go kind of puff, 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 and the thing just keeps on coming.
Right.
So it's almost like something she can't control. So they're evidently...
Or she's out of juice at that moment because of juggling so much. She doesn't have the strength to make it go away.
I mean, it could go it could go both ways, because it could either be she's, already kind of like Atlas holding this whole world on her shoulders, literally. But at the same time, always external forces at play. I guess, we hopefully will get our answers as the show progresses. But both theories, I think, are more than valid.
All right. Boy, we're really getting into it now these days, aren't we? In this third episode. All right. Topic number 3, unless anybody had anything else. So let's go ahead and talk about one of the big reveals in this one. So, quote unquote, Geraldine and the real with their lasers, freaking laser beams, and the real Westview. Because as we find out at the very end of this episode, when Wanda boots Geraldine out of the reality and presumably back into the real world, we get a glimpse of the real Westview and find out that there is some form of strange electronic bubble around Westview, and it's being monitored by some military and scientist types who presumably are SWORD. The question is, what are they doing about this and what was the events of how Geraldine got into this reality in the first place. So, Jesse, let's start with you. So, what do you think? What were your thoughts on Geraldine, who I thought was a very important character in this episode, and that little snap back to reality?
Yeah, so she's
as we peel back the curtain a little bit.
Right. She's so in character at first and telling this long story about her boss, having hiccups and her coming up with this tagline, and it just sounds like a totally, far-fetched sitcom, plot.
Yeah.
And then when she says, and she breaks character, right, and mentions when Wanda talks about her brother, and, she says, yeah, wasn't he was killed by Ultron. And that does not make Wanda happy. And then, we get this, when Vision comes back in, she's gone. And Wanda is very short about, she had to go away. And I don't remember the exact term, but it was like she had to go.
She had to leave.
And,
yeah,
and then when you see her on the ground, like she had to leave in more than one way, and you see all the, helicopters and everything going, and you can you see the beat up sign for the community.
Yeah, Westview.
Someone on Twitter did a call out to one of the original hosts, Karen Lindsay of the Fandom Zone, because she did a Under the Dome podcast, and this did look like a dome, right? That was doing this. So, so you get the feeling that while yes, this is partially in Wanda's head, but it also may be an actual real place and a real area that she's controlling these people and keeping them work, and they're all puppets for her building this life because she wants that illusion of happiness because she's so sad. I thought this was a big reveal. We kind of knew because we'd seen the beekeepers and we'd heard the radio, but this was a big scene like, okay, something's going on in a contained area. The military and sword and whatever else in the Marvel universe are involved, and this is I just saw someone on IMDb talk about this is not supposed to be funny. This is a mystery thriller that is showing the story through sitcoms.
Yeah.
Because someone's like, well, it wasn't really funny. And I do think that's fair. I mean, I enjoy the sitcom feel and the kind of dad jokes and such.
That's not the point.
That is not the point absolutely at all. Very well, Charles.
Yeah. No, I get this impression, this theory I have is that apparently the vibe that I think happened is that Wanda went to Westview, presumably to kind of start over post Endgame, maybe try to, figure out her what she was going to do next, and essentially had the mental breakdown in the town, and her powers got out of control. She enveloped the entire town and decided, in having this breakdown, she created her own reality, and the whole town is now trapped inside this. And that Sword, after finding out that, well, hey, the town of Westview is now in this big, weird reality bubble thing, it has come to try to get everybody out and figure out what's, how to stop Wanda. That's my theory. And Geraldine, and we'll talk more a little bit, but I think Geraldine is obviously part of Sword, and as evidenced by her necklace, and
yes.
it was essentially like a field operative trying to get into the reality. And I'm kind of wondering if she was the one in the beekeeper suit in episode 1. That was her sneaking into the reality.
Could be. Absolutely.
All right. So, Nick, I don't want to steal all your theories, but I just had to share one of mine. So, what did you make of Geraldine, and as we paid attention to the man behind the curtain in this story. What did you make of Westview?
Nice Wizard of Oz reference there. Thank you for mentioning one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, it's one of mine too.
But yeah, it's fantastic. I could watch that movie every day, any day. But
I guess it's the woman behind the curtain in this case, right?
In this case, I believe it is, and I pretty much fully buy that theory of yours, Charles, because that was kind of what I was thinking. I suppose also maybe coming off things like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and what have you. This almost could be like kind of an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. situation where instead of S.H.I.E.L.D. you have S.W.O.R.D.
Right.
Where obviously we don't know all the goings on, why this is the way.
Excuse me. S.H.I.E.L.D. was dismantled, so
yeah.
I think S.W.O.R.D. has taken its place. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I fully bought the whole concept that I think Geraldine, or Monica Rambeau is actually none other than a S.H.I.E.L.D., a S.W.O.R.D. operative who probably went in there to kind of get people out there. So it might be quite the reverse of the fact is the villain in inverted commas actually Wanda? The fact that it's she who has created all of this, not for malevolent purposes, but as you mentioned, because she had a breakdown, so she can't help it.
Right.
But now she's almost like happy to stay in this, if you will, happy place because of all the terrible things that she suffered. So
she's trying to escape now, reality.
So it could almost literally end up being Wanda versus the world, as in the fact that she has created this reality and now she's made herself, without meaning to, the villain in this whole thing, which could be quite the thing, because maybe everybody's waiting in who's the next villain we're going to get, where's the next bad guy. It could actually be right before your very eyes.
Well, I remember another fictional universe that said something along the lines of like, you either die as the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yeah.
That sounds a little familiar, right?
Doesn't it? Yes.
This is very.
Jesse, that was for you.
Yes.
As a DC guy.
Yes, this was very, very, if we go there, it is very much, Willow in the Buffy universe, right?
Dark Willow, yeah.
Dark Willow, which could
this
be
is
very interesting.
Wanda's Dark Phoenix moment, almost.
Yes, exactly. I mean, as we mix these different universes, it is very, and which makes you, she could be a tragic figure. I just really think they're setting this up to a really complex story and using this very creative way to deal with the phases of her mind. I just 3 episodes in, I'm just all in. I just think this is so clever and so well done that I rank it really high as far as telling things in the Marvel universe.
Same here, and I think that could very much be the case. It could be more of a Dark Phoenix situation where people are almost trying to get Wanda to calm down and kind of come back to reality. Literally, I think that is what is going on right now, because we obviously we've known the Scarlet Witch thus far as being a heroine. So it's almost distracting for us to think of her ever as the villain, and that's probably why they're almost leading you to think that there's an outside threat when, as I said before, the threat could be just in front of your very eyes, which I think is very, very clever if that's the case.
Yeah, the threat is coming from inside the bubble in this case.
Yeah.
So I feel that Wanda, is she, I don't know if she's essentially a villain here. She's essentially having a breakdown, so how would you treat, if somebody committed a crime, like took hostages because they had a mental breakdown? Yeah. And I think that's what's happening here, is that essentially it's a superpowered hostage situation going on here.
That's it, yeah. Because I mean, that obviously, that was kind of what I was trying to sort of say. Because exactly, when I use the word villain, I guess an inadvertent villain, I suppose.
Victim, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, she's a victim of her own kind of
mental illness
breakdown.
Yeah,
that's right. So obviously that's why I said she's not really kind of doing it for malevolent purposes. It's just happened the way it has, and now people are almost trying to talk her down, like a hostage situation, because she doesn't mean ill, but the situation has just gotten out of hand for her to where it has become a threat to others.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how Elizabeth Olsen plays this, if that's indeed the case, because she could be really setting herself up for a really nice Emmy here.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
I was just going to you took the words out of my
Sorry.
mouth, Charles. No, this is perfect. You've talked often how great of a job she's doing, and part of, I think, the strength of this is she is so lovable. Elizabeth Olsen is a very likable actress.
Mm-hmm.
As Scarlet Witch. She is very, she is adorable, and she's funny, and she's sweet. And then if we get this turn, I think it'll be very effective and really powerful.
Yeah. So we'll just have to see what happens. I mean, Geraldine, obviously we know her, being revealed as Monica Rambeau. We'll probably get more of that, hopefully, in the next episode, fingers crossed. But it does, obviously, since when Wanda kicked her out of that reality, she's still wearing those clothes outside of the reality. So presumably she made herself up after getting inside.
It's kind of like with S.H.I.E.L.D. when they were traveling through time and they had to kind of do, put on the old-timey clothes to fit into the situation. So
exactly, like camouflage, essentially, yeah.
I guess that could maybe be the deal. I mean, unless it's like Doctor Who, where they can literally look like, they're part of the time or whatever.
Yeah.
But here I think it could be taking a page from what S.H.I.E.L.D. had already established in its last season of, you have to dress the part in order to blend into your surroundings.
Yeah, so next episode is going to be very interesting because the question is, are we going to get more explanation of Gerald, Monica Rambeau, I should start saying at this point, and Sword, or are they just going to kind of gloss over it for a little bit and come back to it?
If we do the chart, right,
yeah.
Each episode has given more and more. So my feeling is they're going to continue to reveal a little bit more.
The progress
each
bar
time.
keeps, going forward.
Exactly. Yes, I think that's what I'm going to do.
Reality almost installed.
Exactly.
Stay tuned.
The little hourglass spinning. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, unfortunately, we're kind of getting that wheel that keeps going around and around and really aggravating us. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll see what happens. Anything else about this episode? I know we talked a lot about it.
Yeah.
For just a half-hour episode. But now it's getting really good.
Yeah, I did want to share. I just saw in IMDb, which is never wrong, that the doll Vision used is Kitty Carryall from the Brady Bunch. So that was actually a prop that they used, that kind of doll in the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, that was Cindy's, the doll that she kept carrying around.
Yes. So
Cindy
if
Brady.
That's true, I think that's really kind of neat.
Yeah.
So
I don't know about. Well, I'm sure it was an homage to that, perhaps.
Yes,
right. I think so too. Just like I think in the commercial to Hydra Soak, I think we might have gotten an homage to Vision's dog Sparky.
Yeah.
Because you saw the little dog there at the beginning of the commercial.
Right.
And, me loving the Vision comics like there's no tomorrow. Vision, yes, folks, actually had a green dog called Sparky, which, and I wonder whether that would have been, might have been a little kind of homage to Vision's dog.
Now, one of the things I did read before we move on, I thought was a pretty good theory that I want to mention. It wasn't one of mine, but I wanted to mention it. The people in the commercial, there's a theory out there that because it's the same man and woman in each commercial, that maybe they're a representation of Wanda's parents and Pietro's parents.
That could actually be a clever one.
The Sokovian parents that were killed.
Could actually be, for sure.
So I thought it was, I don't know for sure, but I thought it was a cool theory. So I thought I'd at least bring it up for the audience and everybody to think about. Okay. All right. Favorite quotes. Do you have anybody have a favorite quotes of this story, this episode?
The only one I had is the pun about I looking forward to be a papaya.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty funny.
Papaya,
After all the fruit jokes.
Right. How about you, Nick? Any quotes?
Well, apart from as I said, the tagline from the commercial, the goddess within, I thought was kind of clever. It kind of got me thinking once again of the whole, Age of Ultron and Hydra thing, but should we say significant quotes per se? Not really, because I kind of sort of drank the whole episode in for what it was, and and since I was kind of on my mad tangent of making the pieces fit and going with my boards and everything, I was like,
yeah,
I didn't do that, but no, I didn't actually have any. Did you have any good ones, Charles?
I have a couple good ones. Where Dr. Nielsen, this is where he's kind of being a little misogynistic. He says, "I thought as much." And they're talking about, the baby and whatnot. And he says, "We let the little ladies keep tabs on their growing babies with fruit. Makes it simple for them. At 4 months, that fetus is about as big as a pear. At 5 months, a papaya. 6, grapefruit. 7, pineapple. 8, honeydew." And Vision's like, hypothetically speaking, what size fruit would be at, say, 12 hours? And Dr. Nielsen's like, pardon? 12 hours? And Wanda replies, or chimes in, she says, "Well, I think this line of questioning is fruitless."
Yes, I loved all those puns.
Yeah, that was good. So, that was good. And then Vision and Wanda later talking about the baby names. And Vision says, "Well, we ought to decide soon. I estimate the baby's due. It's not a constant progression, assuming logarithmic, but were I to graph that fetal development thus far," and Wanda says, "he's going to be here before you figure it out."
Yes.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a good line.
Great one. Yeah.
All right. What's everybody's ratings? This just should be interesting. Jesse, how about you? What's your rating for this episode?
So you kind of took my rating by your quote, but I'm going to stick with it. No. I really like this again, and I loved the honey-dew, as in the baby is almost due, is how I got the pun there.
Oh, like honey and then D-U-E.
Yes. Yeah. So yes, I give it 9 out of 10 honey-dew. Melons, yes.
Okay, good. Nick, how about you?
I actually really enjoyed this myself. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 Hydra Soaks.
Ooh, they're very nice. Well, we're going to be unanimous, guys, because I also give it 9 out of 10 carefully placed fruit bowls.
Yes, that is excellent.
Thank
yes.
you. Thank you.
I thought about broken swing sets, but that is perfect.
Yeah, I really like this one, and it's really, this is where I think everything clicks, and wish people would have stuck around at least to the 3rd episode before bailing on this series. I know it was a little bit of a slow burn for this first couple, but I think the 3rd one, and I think this is why a lot of the press, because they got for all 3 episodes.
Exactly. Why they were so glowing.
Why they were so glowing, because they had seen all 3 episodes and they're like, oh, okay, we get it now.
Yeah, and I do think they were very smart to give us, we talked about this last week, to give us both the first 2 episodes to give you a real taste of kind of what's going on. Because I think if you had just done the 1 episode, it may have been a tough sell. But having them 2, and now this one, it's really good. And Charles, remind me, do we know how many episodes this is going to be?
I think it's 9.
9, I believe.
9, I believe, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I think they took 6 hours and chopped it up.
Okay.
Let's see. So Phantom Zone news, really quickly, all I have is just that The Boys Season 3, a Little Boys Season 3 news, which Nick is very excited about. He probably knows what I'm talking about.
Bettany, yes.
Yeah, so apparently Eric Kripke, the showrunner of The Boys, has confirmed that the show will adapt the highly controversial Herogasm miniseries.
Wow.
So they're going to be doing that, the episode that we never thought they would do. They're going to be doing it in the 6th episode of season 3, and it's going to, like I said, adapting the very controversial comic book arc Herogasm. I won't go into it, but you can look it up on the internet because that's what it's for, kids. And on Twitter, Kripke posted an image of the script's cover with the words, "From day one, everyone dared me to make this episode." And then in all caps he puts, "Challenge met, mother effers."
Good.
Well, if I may, they were able to do certain things that have yet to be done on The Boys, which they did on Doom Patrol. So
right.
I think Kripke can do this. I mean, we've seen pretty should we say, crazy things.
If we could get sex ghosts on Doom Patrol, we should be able to get Hero Gasm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Okay, all right. So, Fandom Zone fan mail. Well, we have another letter, once again, from a certain Holly Mack writing in about
Yay.
Episode 3 of WandaVision. So I thought I'd share that. So, hi, Holly. And Holly says, hey, Charles,
Holly.
Jesse, and Nick.
Hey, Ollie.
Hey. I really enjoyed this episode and love the nods to both the Partridge Family and the Brady Bunch in the opening. Wanda and Vision discussing names for their baby-to-be. Love that Geraldine seemed to take things in stride when Wanda went into labor and all the crazy things that went on while Wanda was in labor. Surprise, it's twins. The Hydra Soap commercial break had me chuckling. And with Vision being suspicious when he sees Agnes talking to Herb about Geraldine being inside the house with Wanda. Wanda talking about her brother was nice, and Geraldine bringing up Ultron makes me wonder how quick Wanda's going to be getting her memories back. If this is a place to stop her from remembering what actually happened. Well, as we postulated, we think Wanda's the one behind this. She wants to stop remembering herself. But we'll see if maybe there's an exterior force. We'll find out. Wanda noticing the sword symbol on Geraldine's necklace means that she's starting to piece things together. Is it next week yet? That ending makes me wonder if that's a crew to help out Geraldine or if Geraldine's going to need help rescuing by Vision and Wanda. Interesting theory, but I think you might be disappointed. We'll see. You might be right. She said, I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. So thank you, Holly.
Yeah, thank you, Holly.
Always lovely to hear from you, Holly. We really appreciate your writing in, and glad you're watching WandaVision with us.
Absolutely.
So if you want to be like Holly, please do. Write to us, phantomzonecast@gmail.com. That's phantomzonecast@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Twitter at phantomzonecast on Twitter, Facebook, the Phantom Zone Podcast, or Instagram at Phantom Zone Podcast. And Jesse, where can they reach you?
Well, you can find me at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. You can hear me every few weeks on the How Many podcast, where me and a bunch of friends debate pop culture topics. We just did an episode of the Q4 celebrity deaths of 2020. Kind of gives us a chance to talk about people that we've lost.
Right.
You can hear me every week talk about one of the greatest TV shows of all times with
Twin
Charles
Peaks,
Skaggs.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, no, Doctor Who. Yeah,
Doctor Who. Yes, where we are going through classic Who and modern Who, and we kind of talk a little bit of everything. We sure would appreciate you checking that. And then, of course, Set Listing Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast, where I talk to fans of Bruce Springsteen's music from around the world. And I am in the middle of recording episodes for a special Friendship Month in March. I have got the call out, and I've already gotten 4 episodes recorded of people that are separated by towns, cities, states, and countries, and their common friendship is their Springsteen friendship and love of music.
Excellent.
Charles and Nick, how about you?
Yeah, Nick, what's going on with you?
Well, Jesse, did you say country? Because if you're fans of country music, I've got a show for you. I do host the Whiskey and Cigarette Show, where we play today's country, traditional country, and everything else in between. For more information about that and where to tune in, you can visit our website. That's whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. Podcast-wise, if superhero movies are your speed, you can check us out on Happiness and Darkness, a superhero movie podcast, where we discuss superhero movies from all the great publishing houses, be it Marvel, DC, Dark Horse Image, etc. If you'd like to join me there, you can shoot me an email at happinessanddarknesshow@gmail.com. Also, Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, which I co-host with the wonderful Rachel Friend and Zan Sprouse, where we're going through all the movies that won the Oscar for Best Picture from 1927 swings to the present day. Jesse and John Takis were kind enough to join us for our recent review of Casablanca, where we had a blast discussing that movie. So those are because I don't want to obviously take all the credit for so many of the podcasts that I have the opportunity of doing with Charles and Jesse. So, what about you, Charles?
Well, Nick, as for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. And my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. Where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on the Phantom Zone podcast, including, well, hey, WandaVision or Stargirl or Watchmen or all the other great shows that we talked about. All kinds of comic book sci-fi news of my other podcasts for Southgate Media, including, well, hey, the aforementioned Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where Jesse and I talk, like he said, Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish Audios, and more. And then, Titan Talk, the Titans podcast they do with Nick, where it's just currently on hiatus, but we talk Titans and Doom Patrol, and we just got some casting news about that they finally cast Barbara Gordon for Titan Season 3.
Yay!
So got some movement on that front. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more, so maybe we could talk an episode and remind everybody that we still exist. And let's see, Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast, they do with Zan Sprouse, where we talk all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch. And our next episode that we're recording later this week is we're going to be discussing David Lynch's 1989 film Wild at Heart with Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern, Willem Dafoe, Diane Ladd. Pretty interesting movie, needless to say. I think it's a lot of fun, and I hope everybody tunes in. And then last but certainly not least, Drunk Cinema, where Zan and I just recorded over the weekend our 4th episode as we discussed The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, as we had adult beverages, adult conversation, and just a grand old time, especially going through all of Zan's wonderful Buckaroo Banzai memorabilia that she's collected over the years. Next episode, we're going to be discussing the 1974 Mel Brooks classic, Young Frankenstein.
Ooh, nice.
Ooh, that'll be great. That's a great pick.
As our sort of Valentine's Day episode. Go figure, because it's us.
That's perfect.
So, because, it's got a love story. Actually, 2 love stories in that one. So, sweet mystery of life, at last I've found you. So, that should be a lot of fun to talk about. That's going to be our 5th episode as we finally leave the 80s and go back to the 70s a little bit. So, that should be a great time. So, please stay tuned for that. All right, everybody, thanks for listening to us. Obviously, we took a half-hour show and we multiplied it by 3 to do this discussion. But I think it was worth it because we had a lot to talk about. And hopefully we'll have just as much to talk about next time. And guys, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Well, I just want to first off, once again, just say, reinforce how blessed I am to be podcasting with both of you, because it's just such a joy. It's a crowning moment of my Sunday, after having played 4 hours of country music, and having done that, and it's all good fun, and then getting to sit down and chat with you two fine gentlemen, it's always a joy and a pleasure. So just thank you so much for the opportunity. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I just, as always, this has been a fun series. I'm really enjoying our discussions, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes down next.
All right, so coming up next week, episode 203, as we discuss episode 4 of WandaVision. We don't know what the title is yet because they're very secretive like that. But it should be a lot of fun. Fingers crossed we get to learn more about Monica Rambeau and S.W.O.R.D. and what happened with Wanda. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be back in a week. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time right here on the Phantom Zone podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Ciao.